Hey everyone, Michael Anthony here. Van Halen, Chickenfoot, Sammy in the Circle. But anyway, you're listening to the only podcast that is dedicated to breaking down the entire Van Halen catalog one track at a time. And the podcast will rock. Ow!
Hello, baby!
What is up, all you rockers, rockettes, and everything in between? You've joined us for a new edition of And the Podcast Will Rock. Welcome back to the show. Dwindling down slowly but surely, but we're still in it, man, and we still got plenty of rock left in our system. I am your co-host, Mark Kamara. With me, as always, Corey Morissette. Corey, are you prepared for the end of the journey, or are you in denial about it?
A little bit of denial. Actually, 15 songs. Now, we've now reached 15, and people are reaching out to us and saying, I got to get on and spin the wheel one more time before you're done. And it's kind of hitting home like, oh, my God, it's not going to be long, and we're going to be done. Actually, Kelsey the other day said, at least once more before the wheel is done. You're only down to 15, so she'll be on next week. Actually, everybody loves Kelsey. She'll be back on the show to spin the wheel. But, yeah, dwindling down, it's, I don't know, it's the end of an era, you might say.
End of an era, but not quite the end yet. And by the way, I can't believe, speaking of all coming back home, I can't believe I forgot the real intro of the show, but I'm going to do that for you right now in case people are just tuning in for the first time, which I don't understand how you got this far finding us for the first time. But if you did, we are the show that dives into the catalog and discography of one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time. That's right, the mighty Van Halen. And we do it one track at a time with a spin of the wheel. That is how it's done. And if you are a reoccurring member, you already know this. And you are weeping tears of sadness because you know the journey is almost over. But don't be sad because, like I say, we've got plenty of show left over. So, or left to go, rather. So why don't we get into it? And Corey, usually, sometimes it's a fun show to do when it's you and I, when we're just kind of going back and forth, kicking it old school. But it's always better when we get a fresh perspective. And we do that by bringing on guests on the show. So why don't you give our guest a rousing welcome?
Well, I've been meaning to ask this guest on for a very long time, ever since his first appearance way back when. He's a brilliant man. He's a private investigator. He's an author. He's a podcaster. He's a balloon enthusiast. He's an amateur magician. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the one and only Darren Paltrowitz is back on the show. Darren, how's it going tonight, my friend?
Nothing but, yeah, what was that? I'm trying to think of more Dave quotes to throw at you. But bottom line is it was a blast being on with you guys last time. And thank you for having me on again. There's some of these appearances that feel like obligations, and there's some of them that are just fun. And this is a fun one.
Oh, well, thank you very much for that. And we wanted to bring you on specifically for this reason, and that's your book. The DLR book, How David Lee Roth Changed the World. Man, you are getting a lot of play off this thing. I'm seeing your name everywhere. Of course, Eric Senich did a big interview with you on the Van Halen news desk. I was just reading a Blabbermouth article on you. It almost feels like I know Taylor Swift in a way because you are just everywhere nowadays. Not only for the book, but also for the Paltrowcast. You got a lot to talk about here tonight.
I try not to be boring. I hope mission accomplished with all that. So I tape interviews 5-6 days a week. There's this book. There's the PI stuff, as you mentioned. There's some artist consulting. I just try not to be boring or sleep. And so far, mission accomplished.
Excellent. So when are you debuting with the Blue Man Group? I heard that was going to be next on your dance card.
I did get somebody related to Blue Man Group in the book. That was a thrill. Because he turns out to have put out this Van Hagar era kind of compilation out of Boston in the mid-90s. So there's that tie to Blue Man Group. I used to know a guy who designed their sound. That's 2. And then number 3 is I fanboyed out big time at Blue Man Group people on a cruise like 10 years ago. I think you're on a cruise and you're not supposed to care about the entertainment. And Blue Man Group was the featured entertainment. And I went to the Q&A and I just want to know everything about Blue Man Group. I don't think I've publicly spoken about that.
A Blue Man Group Q&A, did they just sit there and stare at you? Like, they don't talk, do they?
out of makeup, out of
Oh, okay.
character. And they were able to answer all that. And when you realize what goes into the Blue Man Group, it's actually fascinating that they are characters. It's not just the, okay, they don't talk. So the thing is, they have to learn each of the roles. So Blue Man 1 might be doing the Blue Man 3 just to amuse themselves on a different night.
Oh.
I didn't mean to turn this into the Blue Man group cast, but hey.
Well, I tell you what,
asked.
Darren and I could be starting a new podcast, Blue Man Pod, coming out wherever you get your podcast from. But I want to kind of hear a little bit more about the DLR book, because you want to talk about an interesting fellow. I love kind of in the write-up of the book. What do you do after leaving one of the world's biggest bands? Well, if you're David Lee Roth, you write a memoir, become a radio host, sell a screenplay to a major studio, get certified as an EMT, of course, play Vegas, and put out bluegrass versions of all your biggest hits, and then, rejoin Van Halen for a reunion tour. Guy did a lot, and actually, I just really wish David Lee Roth was in the news right now for something. It just seems like a missed opportunity to have you on, and he's been so low-key lately.
Yeah, extremely low-key. He basically made national headlines 3 times in 7 days. Then somebody leaked him at a tattoo artist over the weekend. There was that one. Did you see that?
I actually missed that one. No, what was that
Missed
about?
that one. No.
I don't know if he was allowed to do it, but his tattoo artist said, me and Uncle Dave at the shop. It was a guy, something like 777 was his name. All the tattoo artists know Dave. Every time I interview a tattoo artist, I throw in a Dave question, knowing there's a chance that they tattooed the guy, but they don't necessarily tell you that on the air or on the mic. You don't know if he, before he gets the needle jabbed in him with the ink, he makes him sign an NDA.
Wow.
Jeez.
So, we talked about it on our last show. On our live show, we didn't touch it because it was Eddie's birthday. We went live just this past Friday, and we didn't want to talk about anything negative, but Dave made some news. Maybe a little bit. Darren, I just kind of wanted to get your take on it, being the guy who literally wrote the book on David Lee Roth. He released a couple of videos on his YouTube channel. What was your take on that whole situation?
At first, it's like, oh, cool, Dave's back. Dave's interesting. Dave's back. And then the charm kind of wears off because he's factually inaccurate about all these things that he swears are the absolute truth and historically correct. So, if you take... I haven't put this out on the DLRcast one, but this new one that he put out about Wolfie, for example, he's going, we're in New York City. We're at Jones Beach. I live 4 or 5 miles from Jones Beach. I don't live in New York City. So just right away, that's a little bit of an inaccuracy. And he's, yelling about how Wolfie kicked out this. But by the way, let me ask this: do you call him Wolf, Wolfie, or Wolfgang? What's the correct way to address him, Mr. Wolf?
We've done all three, I think, Mark, and I don't know if any are correct, but I'm sure he doesn't listen to the show.
Yeah, we typically just say Wolfie if we're talking about him. We could be wrong about that, but here on the show, it's Wolfie.
Okay, so Wolfie, I'll do the air quotes just in case. I don't know if you call a person their nickname once they're over the age of 30.
Good call.
Yeah, I think it's you go from Debbie Gibson to Deborah Gibson, and then at a certain age you become Debbie again. But for a certain number of years, you couldn't be Debbie. So I think that Wolfie, we're going to eventually see the Wolf phase of his career where you don't call him Wolfie. But the whole Dave thing where Wolfie kicked out the accountant who had the checks for the 80 people. You go, so this is 2015. You're telling me an accountant walks in with 80 paper checks?
That's insane.
They magically show up at Jones Beach with a bag full of 80 checks. Then he tells the story again about how they're playing the Hollywood Bowl and that accountant got kicked out again for Wolfie, and they had the checks for 80 plus people. So this accountant just travels from show to show with 80 plus paper checks in their bag. There's no
maybe he prefers the analog approach. Who knows?
So I, being very neurotic, I dug into this and I asked people who work for Dave. I said, when you work for Dave, do you get paid in paper check or direct deposit? And they said, oh, direct deposit every time. So Jones Beach is not in New York City,
right?
And paper checks may not have been the payment. So I just hear all these Dave emerging kind of things. And when he says, hey, that's when Eddie called me. So I asked people who worked with Dave in that era, and they said Dave had no contact with Eddie in that porn period of Ed's life. So
he definitely wasn't talking to Wolfie.
And then he says all that negative stuff about Wolfie, but it's Wolfie who got classic Van Halen back together by calling Dave.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So if these stories are just meant to entertain us, great. But I kind of want to know the truth, or truth-ish, truth-oriented kind of things. And you wonder, does he not remember this stuff, or is he just rewriting history? I don't know.
I think part of it's probably a weird combination of the two. Like perhaps his warped perception is so warped because of, I don't know, list any reason that he remembers things incorrectly. But then at the same time, I don't think he's interested in detailing accurate statements. I think what he and again, I have no basis on this at all because I've never met the guy, but it seems and it feels like even if you told Dave, hey, what you're saying is not accurate, you think he would care? I don't think he would care. He'd be like, nah, it is because I said so, and because anyone will believe what I have to say because I'm David Lee Roth. And it's like, yeah,
it's a little bit like Billy Joe Armstrong coming out and saying, yeah, I met Eddie Van Halen once, and he told me I'm the only person on earth who gets him. It's like, you were a drunk at the time. Are you remembering that all the way correctly? Because I don't know, it doesn't quite pass the sniff test. But Darren, we're going to move on from this real quick. We got a great question in the chat from one of our patrons, Scott Monroe. And he says, Darren, based on everything you know about David Lee Roth's mindset and his desire to create on his own terms, what exactly is he trying to accomplish with his subpar re-recordings of Van Halen songs? And that is a tremendous question. I want to get your take on.
That is.
That's a great question, Scott. I've asked about that. And the first part is you have to have the context of going, he did these re-recordings a couple of months after the Vegas residency got canceled, and he did it with the Vegas band. So I think on one hand, he was just trying to document that era because they didn't do the gigs. And here you go, because Dave likes to record, and he's potentially sitting on hundreds of unreleased recordings, just stuff he felt like doing in the moment. So he's always been recording. Supposedly, he's always in the same room at Henson Studios in LA, the former A&M, supposedly the Karen Carpenter room. And he likes this one room, and he likes this person on the staff, and this is what he does. And, he just kind of makes the call, or his team makes the call, Dave feels like recording right now, and he does that. Now, as for putting them out, my guess is as good as yours. I've spoken with people involved with the recordings, and they don't know when they're coming out. They don't know what's necessarily finished or in the can. They don't know why they've been coming off of Spotify and YouTube after they've been published. No one seems to know anything. And I point that out because when you're talking about a high-level recording artist or even a medium-level recording artist, they usually have their manager who's the face of it, the brains behind the operation, but they have their day-to-day person. They have the person who's coordinating all the interviews, dealing with all the marketing and promo kinds of things, dealing with the Apple and Spotify things, the promotions, etc. And it doesn't appear that Dave has the day-to-day person. So in turn, there's a lot lost in the process of when he goes, I want to do this. And they don't necessarily finish, or they don't unveil it the right way. Hence why he does these big things. And then there's no interview or press release. It's posted. And then a bunch of people go, it's posted. And then you go, oh, okay. And then it's gone. Does that answer?
So it's all chaos essentially, and it's like, and nobody knows. Like, oh, we don't know who's doing it. Like, somebody knows. Like, answer.
Yeah, I think I have it in the book that when I interviewed John 5 a couple of years back, I said, "Do you find out when these songs that you wrote with Dave and played on with Dave are coming out?" And he said, "No, I see it on Blabbermouth that it's out. I get the Google alert." So the songwriter doesn't even know.
Right.
So, if the songwriter who played the instruments on it doesn't know, I just don't think anybody knows. Dave and Team Dave are just going, okay, now. and then we get these things. So what is he doing with these re-records? I think it's part that he just had them in the can, part that he's trying to do this whole thing of I am Van Halen. I thought, and people who used to work with him brought this to my attention. You know how one or two of the singles of the Van Halen re-records had that graphic that said Roth lives?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of in poor taste, isn't it?
Little bit. Yeah.
That's incredibly poor.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit.
Yes.
That's incredibly poor taste. Yeah, let's just call it a spade a spade. Like, it's extremely disrespectful and in poor taste. And but poor taste doesn't seem to be something Dave's ever been concerned with. Because again, I think in his mind, everything he does is gold, which I don't know how you've gone this long you still thinking that, but all right, fine, we'll do it.
I think he had a perfect, to rudely interrupt you, Mark, for the first of many to come. I think that Dave had a perfect batting average until 88, arguably 90. And then if he doesn't have a proper manager in place, all the cracks show. If he doesn't have a co-pilot or a great collaborator, all the cracks will show. And I think that things got great again under Matt Sensio in the late 90s until the early 2000s. And then after the first Van Halen reunion tour, I think when Matt Sensio was gone and the team changed again for the umpteenth time, I think the cracks really started to show. And so that batting average, it's not even a 300 batting average. It's kind of like a pinch hitter 140 kind of batting average at this point in time. And it's just we expect the most from Dave because we know what he's capable of from the 70s, 80s, early 90s. And instead we just get this garbage, this dumpster fire, hot garbage stuff over and over again. Yet all the Facebook and YouTube comments are so positive. Yeah. What's up with that?
I can, like, he released another video, I think it was this week, just him dancing to some stupid thing. He even gets winded halfway through, goes to the back of the room, takes a break, and then dances like an idiot again. Everyone's like, oh, Dave's the man. You go, Dave. You're like, what the fuck is this? Like, why are you putting this out?
And they're old videos, too, I do believe. I've heard from people who have been at the Mojo Dojo. These are old videos in the can.
Oh.
So you go, why is that what you're putting out?
It's kind of like every time we do the show and we spin a Dave track, it could go either way, depending on what era of Van Halen, but typically it's overall very positive in the polls. Mm-hmm. But suspiciously, it's not suspicious, it's just weirdly, whenever we spin a Sammy track, the votes tend to swing less positive. And I feel like there's this overwhelming weird sense of Roth loyalists out there that no matter what Van Halen you're listening to, if Roth ain't singing it, then it's not Van Halen in their eyes, and they're gonna automatically vote down because it's like, it's not Roth, so fuck it, nope, downvoting. And then I think these are the same people that are jumping into the YouTube and Facebook comments of these stupid videos and just like, hashtag so brave, or just like, yeah, Dave's still the man.
Hashtag so brave.
You know, like stupid bullshit like that. And it's like, what is wrong with you? Like, all of you, seriously.
I think you're being too positive about that. And I've spoken about it with somebody who might be seated 6 feet away from me right now, that I think that they're moderating the comments that get published. So the second there's anything that's less than flattering, it's gone. And I once tested that by putting up a negative comment, and it was deleted.
Okay. Well, then there you go. And then there's that. And then there's that.
Yeah.
So all the Dave to the grave stuff is staying there. And then why are you posting old videos? That's gone.
And bizarre ones too. Now, I'm going back to the chat here because, Mark, we have a question for you. Very serious question from one of our patrons. Jeff Brewer wants to know, Mark, what kind of conditioner are you using on your hair? He wishes he had that much hair. So please enlighten the people.
Well, I can't give all of my trade secrets away, but here's what I'll say. I have ridiculously curly and tangly hair. It's only gotten worse as I've just let it grow and do what it do. But it also means that I have to take better care of it. So the key is wash it at least once a week, and then condition it a lot and keep it wet, keep it moisturized. And then I put in a leave-in conditioner when I want it to, when I don't feel like washing it. And then I just want to have it, sit nicely and not look like a rat's nest.
There you have it. Hope that answered your question, Jeff. Scott Everett.
I can't tell you the brand because I honestly don't know the brand.
Well, Scott Everett in the chat, some of the luster did come off with the YouTube post last week. I think even those that were always positive were turned off by them. And yeah, I think you saw a little bit of a change. Like, you go after Ed, you go after Wolfgang. It's you're going to lose a little public support. And now everyone's kind of waiting. Wolfgang is not afraid at all to call out assholes on Twitter who take him to task for naming his band or just being the son of Eddie Van Halen. Everyone's kind of waiting for his response. I like to think maybe Wolfgang's going to play this one kind of close to the vest and just say, you know what, just fucking let it go.
I think that's exactly what he's going to do. And he obviously knows the workings of, or he at least knows the workings of Dave better than we do, for sure. And I think he's probably in the headspace of, even if I engage with Dave about this stuff, what's it going to lead to? What is it going to solve or accomplish? Because at this point, Dave's just going to Dave. So, yeah, I don't think he's just wasting his energy on it.
I have a slightly different take on this, and this is the jaded industry take on it, because I tape interviews 5-6 days a week. Mm-hmm. And a certain percentage of the interviews that I do, the publicist gives you a preamble before you do the interview, and they go, I'm going to become a fake LA publicist. Are you ready for good character work?
All right, here we go.
Oh, yeah.
They go, oh, well, they are so excited to talk with you. This is going to be great. Let me tell you, we are psyched. But can you just not talk about blank? And then they give
everything you want to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. There was one artist that I interviewed last week, legendary. I don't want to say what his name was, but he's thought of as a, quote, pub rock artist from England of the early 80s. It's not Joe Jackson and it's not Elvis Costello. You can figure out who it was. And he turned out to be lovely and wonderful, and we could have spoken for hours. But his team is like, by the way, don't use the words pub rock. He doesn't like talking about that. Don't talk about his old hits so much. He's not interested in that. And so sometimes you do these interviews and they go, hey, we're so psyched. And we're talking about the new album, right? We're talking about the new album, right? And the tour, yeah. And there'll be no mention of any former bandmates, right? So Wolfie has that kind of a publicist.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
So
he definitely I know
does.
He definitely does. His publicist was handling who is that guy from Iced Earth who's at the insurrection?
Oh shit! I don't know his name, but I know. Yeah, I know that whole.
He was handling him right before January 6th. That guy put out a fire or six, but he also handles. I can't speak today. Handles Alter Bridge and Tremonti. He's a real heavy hitter, and if you're an interviewer, if you want to get his clients again, you listen to him and you don't ask about those topics. So that's why I don't think we're seeing Wolfie quotes just yet.
Gotcha.
That's probably the best and more accurate answer. So there you go. I will leave it to Darren on that one. There you have your answers, people. Like, again, Corey and I, we're not experts. We're not the rock historians. We tell you every week. We have to make it known, because just in case those old trolls from yesteryear want to start cropping back up and tell us how much we don't know shit about Van Halen. Like, we didn't say we did. So.
Join the club. You can't tell me how many people tell me I don't know anything. I had a person who took issue with something I said about Dave related to what we're talking about. Somebody who worked with Dave for a long time told me that he never said one nice thing about Wolfgang ever, backstage or anything. And a YouTube commenter was going, that's not true. I was in the room. They wouldn't say who they were, but they were like, that's not true. I was in the room. He always said nice things about Wolfgang. And then this thing comes out and you go, pretty sure you were wrong about that one. But
It's like, oh, were you in the room? What room was that? What was the room? Tell me.
which institution room was that? And I think that there's always going to be internet rumors about these kinds of things. But at the same time, Van Halen was an A-list, high-level band. Mm-hmm. Yet there's so many things that go on with Van Halen that, for lack of a better term, are a little ghetto or lower class. And you never know what the truth is with these things, Dave included.
Well, I'll have you know, I was in the room. I was at the Mississippi Coast Coliseum in Biloxi, Mississippi, with 16,000 other people, and he spoke very highly of Wolfie then. So
I know for a fact you were not in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Oh, you got me. You got me.
It's anything is possible. Anything is possible. Maybe Dave liked him for a couple of nights and somebody overheard that kind of a thing. But I was supremely heartbroken by these podcasts. And a lot of people who work with Dave have texted me to say that they were heartbroken and they agree with all that. And then 10 to 20% of the people who listen to my stuff or read my stuff basically go, "You snowflake. These are funny. These are entertainment. You're taking this all too seriously." And I go, okay, if somebody spoke about deceased family members of mine like that, I wouldn't find it entertaining personally. So I can only imagine what Wolfgang and Alex think of all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, no shit. Ugh.
All right.
Who are you ignoring in there, Corey?
Well, yeah, I'm ignoring Chaz apparently, but I don't know. He's not saying anything too interesting. So when he starts, I'll just bring his comments in. But we have another question here from the chat from our good buddy Scott Monroe, who says, Darren, for your book, I heard you say that you did lots of research and investigating for the sake of clearing up fact from fiction. Can you provide one or two notable examples of that?
Sure. Getting Dave's helicopter pilot's license. Things like that. We have a thing here in the States, Freedom of Information Act, that basically lets you get certain government and public records if you ask nicely and you explain what it's for, and that it's not for commercial use. So I knew that kind of stuff from being a private investigator. Then the part about the truth about Sammy and Dave had a corporation together for their tour, the Hagar Roth touring. I figured that out by pulling the corporate documents and looking at the years that different corporations were dissolved by Dave. That came from knowing where to look with the California Secretary of State. I can give you a trillion of these, but I don't want to put everyone else to sleep.
Well, I find that really fascinating, and just everybody out there, go get the book. I know mine's on order. Because I live in Canada, it's going to take for bloody ever to get here. But
I'll email you the advanced PDF tonight, and then you can leak it like everybody else.
You're the man. Thank you very much. Yeah, look for that. Look for that on my Twitter feed coming up. I'm going to be leaking the book for my good buddy Darren. But Mark, it's been about half an hour. Maybe we should get into the show. We have a Van Halen song to talk about. But before we do that, man, I missed a little piece of business last week. Because, last week...
I feel like this one will be easier.
Yeah, we did Pleasure Dome was the song that we spun last week. First, we did a live show on Friday. We're not counting that. But last Wednesday, we spun Pleasure Dome. And I forgot to ask, how many times do you guys think Van Halen ever performed Pleasure Dome? So now we got Darren on here, and it's unfair to Darren. He's a Dave guy. This is a Sammy track, but you have to try and guess. And you're hearing the Price is Right theme because we play Price is Right rules. You have to get closest to the actual number without going over. How many times do you think Van Halen ever performed Pleasure Dome? And we're going to start with Mark Kameyer.
30 times.
30 times. All right, Darren Paltrowitz, you can go 31. Try and screw him up that way. But how many times do you think Van Halen performed Pleasure Dome?
Price is Right rules?
Price is Right rules, yep.
$1.
$1?
$1.
All right, Darren. Oh, it's at least more than once because they have it on the damn live record. On live right here, right now, they do Pleasure Dome. The correct answer, 98 times.
Oh, damn.
So,
almost,
Mark, you won?
Almost a full hundo, but not quite. You said $1. You should have said $100. But,
that's right.
Hey, look, I win.
Yeah, what do you win?
Yeah, there's no prize.
Satisfaction.
Although, coming up, we're talking around middle of February, we're talking about doing a Van Halen trivia night. If you want to take part in that, there is a prize. We're going to be setting the winner a T-shirt from our TeePublic store 100% certified Van Halen expert, designed by our good friend Kevin Brown. So I don't know. We talked about maybe getting Eric Senich in there. I don't know if maybe you and Eric should compete for prizes, because you probably know most, and you literally wrote the book on David Lee Roth, for crying out loud. So you're probably going to ace that thing.
No, Eric knows 10 times more than me. Greg Renoff knows 10 times more. They had me on this Connecticut radio station doing Van Halen trivia as their hired gun expert a couple of days. And some of these things you go, I have no idea. Well, I have a life. Why would I know that?
maybe
how many seconds does Spanish fly? That was an actual question.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Why would I know that?
Well, here's a shot of the T-shirt. All of our patrons are invited to participate in Van Halen Trivia Night, and we will send you a certified Van Halen expert T-shirt, courtesy of Mark and myself. We're trying to nail down a date. It's going to be sometime in February, but that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm anxious for some of these experts we have in the chat to put their money where their mouth is, and we'll see who comes out on top.
Maybe we can get Eric and Greg and Darren as like the judges panelists, something like that, in case a question goes awry and we need a judge to come in and facilitate. I think that would be a good position. So there you go. Yeah, otherwise, they're just the three of them's just going to run a train on everybody.
There you go. We'll get Eric, we'll get Darren, and we'll get someone from the Bogasotis, maybe other Darren. We'll have Darren squared, and we'll do a live show with it.
If it's some Salvaje trivia, I could do that.
Okay. Well, we have to throw some of that in there, actually. That's a good idea.
Yeah, there you go.
What's the fourth word of soy facile?
Oof.
You got me stuff.
That is a preview of what Van Halen trivia is going to look like. Then some of y'all are in trouble. But maybe not. Maybe not. Some of y'all are going to show out, and I can't wait for that. Speaking of showing out, I don't know where all the Van Halen or the Sammy Hagar fans went to, because they didn't show out for this poll. As Corey mentioned, we went over Pleasure Dome last week, or the last show anyway, and a shocker, the upvote won out, but it was still not quite as high as I'm actually kind of a little bit surprised, but then I'm also not. We had a 73% vote of What Dreams Are Made Of for Pleasure Dome versus a 27% The Dream Is Over. If you were to ask my co-host Corey, I'm sure he would say this should be much higher in the Dream Is Over campaign, but Corey did upvote Pleasure Dome, which was a huge shocker to everyone across the board. What do you think about these the poll results here, Corey?
Little high for me. Like, if you're grading this, like, I get it for a Sammy track. 72 is pretty much the norm. If you look at it now, it's ranked 83rd on our list of Van Halen tracks. We've covered 108 songs so far, Mark. This one ranks 83rd. But everything, look at all that green on your screen here. That's all Sammy tracks. There was only a couple of Dave tracks in there. Big River from Different Kind of Truth, Honey Baby Sweetie Doll, and Dancing in the Street are the three kind of Dave tracks in that era. You only get like one Gary song in there, Without You, from Van Halen 3. That finishes just a couple spots below Pleasure Dome, but Pleasure Dome is nestled in with In and Out, Source of Infection, Don't Tell Me from Balance, which I think should be much higher. Can't Stop Loving You. So par for the course for Sammy, but yeah, I don't know. Like we talked about Pleasure Dome, and you're going to read the tweets. A lot of defenders for that song. A lot of guys who just couldn't find themselves to upvote it. The music is phenomenal. Musically, it's a great song. Sammy does his absolute best to ruin it, at least for me, and for some other people out there too.
I mean, I honestly didn't have as big of a problem with it. I thought it was going to be more of an issue when we got to the song, because it had become infamous that Corey was not looking forward to discussing that track, but I was very surprised by the results. So let's go to the tweets here by our lovely patrons to see what they're saying about Pleasure Dome. Starting off, and then we'll hit it at the Discord after this, but starting off with Sean Geek, our buddy Sean McGinnity from the Sean Geek and Fast Fret podcast says, I like this track, but I'm a drummer, and honestly, I could never downvote anything Alex puts together like this. And I mean, we did sort of harp on what Alex is doing in this song, so I mean, there's no shocker there. not a surprise whatsoever. So thank you, Sean. Rava Flav says, for a couple of years now, this is the song that Corey assured me that I should not like. I can't get with the spoken part, but that bridge, complete with the cowbell and the drive after it's brozactly what them's dreams is made of. Hashtag play it loud. At first, I'm like, did Rava Flav have a stroke while tweeting this? And like, oh, I see what he did there. But yeah, there you go. See that right away. Rava Flav's expressing his kind of happy disappointment in the sense that Corey assured everyone that this would not be a good track, and then here we are.
I don't know where they get that from. I know I kind of mentioned I wasn't looking forward to it. I'm not, because Sammy sucks on this thing. Like I don't think he's singing it that great. The spoken word section stinks, and I hate his delivery of the fucking chorus. You have the whole. Well, I gotta look.
You didn't have,
lost in this pleasure dome.
Fuck that. That's terrible.
And yet you upvoted it.
Musically, that song is a rocker. Like, it's really, really good.
Musically, it's awesome.
And as a fan of Alex Van Halen, maybe his best drum performance on that entire record. And when you listen to Live Right Here, Right Now, and it's the instrumental, fantastic. Like, you do not skip that thing. It's absolutely amazing, bridging into the drum solo. It's just Sammy I wasn't a fan of on that one, but it was still, the music was definitely good enough for me to upvote it.
Well, there
Good
you go.
enough.
There you go.
I see what you did there.
Thank you.
Good enough, exactly. Brad Gould says, this song shreds, full band at full speed. The lyrics are a bit wonky, but delivered with a powerful performance by Sammy. Really dig the complexity of the rhythm section, and Eddie is, well, Eddie. Hashtag what dreams are made of. That sort of echoed my sentiments about how I felt about Pleasure Dome. But I did agree that spoken word bit that Sammy does at the at the beginning of his vocal run, not the great. That was really my only downside to the track, but everything else worked for me. So let's see. Davey Lee Smith says, I'll be honest, this grew on me a bit, but it still felt on the longer side for me. I would prefer this as an instrumental, and when Sam does the talking, it feels awkward and him trying to be funny. A bit too hard, if you ask me. Dream is over, but barely. So, okay, there you go. There's a downvote right there. We knew it was going to happen with some of our patrons, but at least they have the voice to let us know why. And let's see. All right, buddy. Josh says, no better song to have on repeat while pulling a northern pike out of the frozen lake and seeking warmth in an igloo, hence the Pleasure Dome.
That is the most Canadian thing that I've heard of.
I was going to say, clearly he's been to Saskatoon, because that's...
Pulling a pike. Say that again?
Pulling a northern pike out of a frozen lake and seeking warmth in an igloo.
Yep.
So he's painting a portrait. He must be in Quebec. Great fishing in Quebec.
Northern Pikes are in Saskatchewan. Actually, one of my favorite Canadian bands is from Saskatchewan and named the Northern Pikes.
Oh,
well, that goes to show you how my Canadian geography is. I am the worst Canadian descendant ever.
Go look up a song called She Ain't Pretty. It actually charted in the States. Very good Northern Pike song.
I'm going to
feel like you played that song for me.
I may have.
You may have. So Greg Zito says, this is hard, but I have to downvote it. And with the thumbs down emoji, there's another one. He didn't, maybe it's on Discord, but here he didn't explain why. He just said, can't. And moving on. And all right. And that is it for our tweets from our patrons. You guys, we have plenty of tweets and responses on this poll, but if you want it guaranteed read on the show, join our Patreon, and you can have access to our Discord where we have you could just write a manifesto if you want, or a full-blown manifesto, just like our friend Scott Monroe has done. So here we go. And by the way, thank you, Scott, for making it clear in the Discord where I need to start reading. It's like, I appreciate you guys more than you know. He says Pleasure Dome is hashtag what dreams are made of, despite being overly long and having some problematic Sammy vocals. I assume he's referring to the spoken word part. I'm of several minds on this track. I can look past the bad parts and enjoy the elements of the song that really work, yet I agree with most fans that it works better as a condensed instrumental, like the version from Live Right Here, Right Now. But in my headcanon, there's also an edit of the studio version that I think works best of all. Let me break it down. Here he goes. There's no disputing that Eddie Van Halen's intro noodling with the dive bombing and high tempo jam of the trio that follows is an incredible start. This is perfect fuck tone. Then we get to Sammy's spoken verses. Ugh. Lyrically, it's somewhat interesting, but the delivery just doesn't work for me. This needs to be gone. The Miles and Miles pre-chorus / bridge section is great. There are the only vocals you need on this song. These are the only vocals you need on the song. The Pleasure Dome chorus that follows, again, with that annoying spoken style by Sammy, is trash. It should be gone too. The Jamgasm solo from roughly 4 minutes to 5 minutes and 5 seconds is worth the price of admission alone. Hot damn, wouldn't change a thing there. After the solo jam section, kill the repetitive pre-chorus and chorus, Miles and Miles, etc. We get it. Just keep the cool Eddie Van Halen harmonics from 6 minutes 14 seconds to 6 minutes 28 seconds. The song can end right after that. And with those cuts, it clocks in at a little under 5 minutes instead of nearly 7. And it's a totally solid album track with no issues on my end. Thanks for indulging me. The pleasure was mine, all mine.
Well, and I'll tell you what, here's a
beautifully
little
worded there, Scott.
Absolutely. A little value add for all of our patrons on the Discord server. Kevin Brown actually took those edits and recut Pleasure Dome and posted it on our Discord, and it is 100% better. Like, it is a great track. Yeah.
And it's as much igloo. Good for an it'll melt your igloo down. So be warned. I will say, even though I was pretty positive on Pleasure Dome throughout, and my issues didn't match a lot of people's issues, I did listen to the Kevin Brown edit, and you are correct, it is vastly superior. So thank you, Kevin, for that. Let's see here. Scott even said it's miles and miles above the original. Thank you, Kevin.
I see.
He's the man. Yeah. All right, our patron Chad says Pleasure Dome, fuck. When this album came out, this track was a skipper for me. It wasn't party Van Halen, and frankly, I didn't get it. Now, so many years later, this song has aged excellent in my opinion. It has a bit of the alternative vibe to it. The music is excellent, not too stock. And Sam's spoken word part doesn't bother me now like it did when I was a kid. My only complaint, miles and miles from nowhere. What does that even mean? The opposite of nowhere is everywhere. So wouldn't that mean that if you were miles from nowhere, you would have to be smack dab in the middle of everywhere? So how can you be lost or so far away from anything when you are in the middle of everywhere? I don't know how you voted, Chad. Based on this, I'm not. It seems like you were positive, and then you got really mad, and then you just ended it there. So
he's like, that's it, I'm done. But he did say,
I think it's fucking stock. Which part of that is unclear to you?
Yeah, and then I think Kevin Brown tries to interject with that. Said he goes, I'd say the opposite of nowhere is somewhere, but that's picking nits, which is what Mark usually does. But he seems to be asleep at the wheel. I think Scott Monroe nailed his edit. When you take out the spoken word section, the song is definitely stronger for me, but it's never been a song that bothered me at all. It's just a fairly middling album track. So I think Kevin voted yes on that one.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's see. And Sean McGinnity, he elaborated more from his tweet, and he says, I have some thoughts on Pleasure Dome. I can't remember when and where I heard it. Sammy's bio, maybe. When Alex soloed and later when Ed soloed, he would take that time and bring in a groupie. I think he might have referred to the area he took them in as his Pleasure Dome. I could be off there, but in my head, it makes sense. So maybe, I mean, based on the context of the lyrics and everything, I wouldn't discredit that as a possible thing. Darren, do you know? Do you happen to know? I know it's not anything Roth related, but do you happen to know?
Sammy talked about that in his book about the sleeping bags onto the stage, and people I've spoken with go, "Yeah, that's not true. That's you having a really good story or attempting to have a really good story." And the further background on that is the Sammy autobiography that we, the public, have is not the original one that he sued to have never come out because he was horrified about what was ghostwritten for him. So,
oh boy,
a different kind of truth is applicable in a lot of ways in the Van Halen universe.
My goodness.
Good Lord. It's just like, the band drama never ceases. Like there's never a shortage of stories with the band at all. They make Kiss
look functional.
That is something.
And that's saying a lot. That is, I don't know. We might have to go like tit for tat on that one, but I'll be in front row seat of attendance of that show, of just like debate Kiss drama versus Van Halen drama, discuss. But finally, rounding out the manifestos here is our buddy Jeff Brewer, who says, I put Pleasure Dome in the same category as Girl Gone Bad. They are both great instrumental tracks that are probably not the easiest to write lyrics and vocal lines / melodies to. Incidentally, they were both used live as instrumental jams. Ed, Al, and Mike jammed to the music of Girl Gone Bad for the Diver Down tour before it was recorded. You can see it on the U.S. Festival video. I think Dave worked within a theme with his lyrics a little better than Sam did on their respective songs, but when Sam is actually singing, it's pretty good. Pretty good? The music is superb. This is a standout track for Al. For both sound and performance, this is probably my favorite Alex Van Halen track. Definite upvote. No arguments, man. Yeah, like even if the lyrics and the vocals didn't do it for you, if everything else didn't work for you, Alex Van Halen is slaying this song, man. I mean, honestly, just the rhythm section in general is slaying the song. So, but we'll give it to Alex, man, because every once in a while we like to pull out a little gem of a song, and it's usually because it's an Alex special. So there you have it. Those are the thoughts on our voters, at least our patron voters, on Pleasure Domes. And like I said, if you want it guaranteed read on the show, join the Discord. You got to join our Patreon. It's easy. It's fun. Do it.
All the cool kids are doing it.
Yeah, all the cool kids are doing it. We're all about knowing what's going down with the cool kids. So now it's time to almost spin the wheel. And I say almost because we got to do our other favorite thing before we spin the wheel. Say it with me and take a drink. Manifestations.
Here we go.
Woohoo. Yeah.
All right. We have a ton on the Discords. I'm going to get Mark... here it's going to be kind of tough to get all the manifestos, or sorry, the manifestations in order.
Yeah, it's
because everyone's jumping around on Discord. So what we're going to do, Darren and I will go first while you look those up, Mark. We're going to try and manifest what this wheel is going to spin for us here tonight. One of the Scots, forgive me, I think it was Scott Monroe, maybe called his shot with Pleasure Dome last week. So he's eligible to get one of those. I called him a shot and joined the Manifest Club. And the podcast will rock t-shirts on TeePublic. I haven't called my shot in forever. Mark, you've called your shot a couple times. I'm at 3 times out of the entire catalog. So we're going to try and manifest a song for the wheel to spin tonight. I'll go first. I have it on good authority that Mark is going to exercise his godlike podcast powers. And if we accidentally spin a Sammy track, he's throwing it away. And we're going to keep spinning till we get a Dave track, because we got the guy who literally wrote the book on David Lee Roth on here tonight. And that's Mark Meyer. No, it's not. It's Darren Paltrowitz. So we're going to be
not me.
No, we're going to be spinning it. Yeah, why not? Right? You just make up a bunch of shit. That's what Dave does. Anyways, we're gonna. So we're gonna spin a Dave track here tonight, and I'm gonna keep saying it until we spin it. It's one of my favorites off of Van Halen 2. Somebody get me a doctor. That's what I'm hoping for here tonight. Darren Paltrowitz. I'm hoping you can see the wheel here on our little Zoom screen. We have 15 tracks left. What song are you hoping to spin here tonight?
I feel like Laughing Hard, so Bullet Head.
Okay.
Because Bullet Head is probably my second least favorite song on A Different Kind of Truth. So, hey, I'm game for anything here.
Excellent. All right, so that's one for Somebody Get Me a Doctor, one for Bullet Head. Mark, have you gone through the Discord? Do you have all the manifestations in front of you?
I do, and that is due in large part from our friend Tom Armbruster, who decided to compile the he waded through the shit pile of what was happening in the manifestations Discord channel, and he said, just to sum it up for Mark, because he will get confused and it'll slow the pace down, and I appreciate, he didn't say all that, but it was implied, so I appreciate you, Tom. And here we go. The manifestations. Scott Monroe wants Hang 'Em High.
Okay.
Josh wants House of Pain. He's trying to end the 1984 wheel. Yeah, right away. Jeff Brewer wants Atomic Punk. course. Our buddy Mataz is absolutely going for Josephina because he just wants to rip the Band-Aid off of Van Halen 3.
You're not getting it because we're not spinning that one tonight.
Even if we spin it, you're not getting it this time. So sorry, Chaz. And let's see. And then Tom is in agreement with Scott Monroe. He wants Hang 'em High.
All right, we still got
the manifestations, I think.
We got a couple off Diver Down. We have Hang 'em High and Big Bad Bill. So that wouldn't finish off Diver Down, but
I would be happily listening to Big Bad Bill.
Well, we're going to find out awfully soon here. Let's bring in the wheel. There it is right there. How many folks do we have watching? I don't even know.
Should probably check that out.
You know what? We're just going to guess. We're going to say there's 6 watching. There's 3 on the call. I'm going to shuffle this thing 9 times. Does that sound good?
9 times.
9 times. All right. So shuffle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. If we're ready to rock and roll, here we go.
Wait. I didn't manifest mine.
Oh, for fuck's sakes. All right.
Let's do it.
I guess you get a manifestation in there too.
I am one of the hosts.
All right. What do you want to hear?
Jamie's crying. Go.
Jamie's. All right. I got to bring in the wheel again. I got to bring the song again. All right. Here we go. Oh, did I do it? I did it. That's number 4.
Wow,
somebody get me a doctor. Yes, sir.
I'm about to get Corey a championship ring. I think once you call your shot 4 times, you get a ring. You get a special ring.
Oh, nice.
That's
I can't wait.
Championship caliber.
Oh, somebody get me a doctor. Love it. Been waiting for that one for a while.
Too. You have been waiting for that one for a while. So
I think I've manifested that about 40 times in the history of the show because it's one of my all-time favorite Dave tracks for sure. So I'm really looking forward to this one. And this is
show your hand.
Oh, I think this one actually finishes off Van Halen 2.
No way.
It does.
Oh, wow. Well, you guys, you heard it here first.
3.
We have officially finished Van Halen 2. So that's our next live show, yeah?
That is our next live show. That's probably going to have to wait until March though, because we have the trivia show.
It'll have to wait.
Coming up in February, but yeah. Van Halen 2, the one I controversially stated was my favorite Van Halen record. Van Halen 2. So.
I'm totally with you that people don't talk about Van Halen 2 very much, but the songs are spectacular. The production's not as great as Van Halen 1 or 84, but super underrated record.
To me, I've always said, because Corey and I both adore Van Halen 2, I have always considered in my listening days that essentially, in my head canon, Van Halen's 1 and 2 are essentially one big album that are just cut in half. You know, it's like, because I feel like you could, but to your point, is the quality a little bit better in 1? Yeah, just a little, but it doesn't ruin the listening experience to me. And to me, I can just easily transition at the end of Van Halen 1 and go right into Van Halen 2 without feeling like I missed something. So in my mind, I always like to picture Van Halen 1 and 2 as sort of just one long album. And that makes the enjoyment even more for me. So nothing bad to say about this album. Again, showing my hand early, but I mean, it's Van Halen 2. We've talked about this many times before, so it is what it is.
So Chaz in the chat is trying to put forward a bullshit theory that it's rigged. Everything is rigged. It's not. Quit saying it's rigged.
It's been a while since we've heard that one.
Yeah, and the Jet Bruce says, definitely rigged. It never came up the 50 times I manifested that one. No, it's just because we only had 15 songs left, and eventually we were going to spin it, but why do you think, especially this song, Mark, why it kind of ties in with Van Halen was, this is one of the first songs they ever wrote. They played it at all their early shows. It just kind of got squeezed off of Van Halen 1, but they brought it back for Van Halen 2.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. And obviously they felt like they had something really special with the track or with the song itself that even by essentially semi-discarding it in lieu of their debut album, they still couldn't let it go. You know, they had to bring it back. They had said, hey, that was a good track. I think people enjoyed it when we were playing those clubs and we were playing those parties. So why not bring it back? Let's see what we can do with it. And maybe also, and this might be a question for Darren. This might be a question for, actual experts. I am not. I'm just guessing. Maybe they were kind of having some trouble coming up with a newer song, and they thought, well, why bother? We already have this one that we could just reuse. And they did. And
rush job of an album.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you've already got it in the arsenal but you haven't put it to like an official record yet, why wouldn't you?
Right.
All right. You boys ready to listen to some music?
Absolutely.
All right. Let's go all the way back to Van Halen 2. And this is Somebody Get Me a Doctor.
Oh, that riff is dirty. Oh,
Isn't
it's
that
so
something?
dirty, and I love it. It's so good. I love it. And that might be my favorite Dave intro of all the ones in his arsenal. Just that high pitched howl coming in, like making it metal as fuck. And I dig it. I really dig it.
We start off with a big barrel, and then you hear 1, 2.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you got to count leading into a song, I'm all in. And then
It's like old school, it's like we're doing it old school. We're counting it out loud. We're just going right into it, and just with those power chords, and just let it rip
and put some stank on it.
Damn right.
Oh yeah.
I like the lyrical transcription of the Dave scream is awe.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Aw.
Aw.
That's how you transcribe a Dave scream. Awe.
Essentially.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Darren, anything you want to say about the intro to this one?
It's great. It's a classic. And in Dave early 2000s on his solo tours, he wasn't really doing a lot of deep cuts, but he was doing Somebody Get Me a Doctor every night. So clearly the song meant a lot to him.
Mm.
All right, let's keep her going. And we got to talk about the harmonies on Somebody Get Me a Doctor. That's one thing when they did this, when Wolfie joined the band, they didn't lose a step. Like Wolfie, I think, really sang this good whenever they did this song live on the reunion shows. And it's the magic of Mikey. And actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Darren, but on the Van Halen 3 tour, they did this song, but Mikey sang it, didn't he, instead of Gary?
I believe so. And I think I saw Mike sing this at the Sammy gig that I saw in Vegas a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been doing that something lately. I'm hoping they'll break it out on I can't call it the Best of All Worlds tour anymore because Sammy changed the name of the tour. It's now the Thank You Tour.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That did not hit my radar.
Yeah, I just read a thing today where he said he's actually going to call it the Thank You Tour because it's a thank you to the fans and a thank you to Eddie.
Ugh.
That's cool.
No, it's not.
it's not cool, but it's the sentiment is cool.
It's
sentiment,
fake
man.
Gratitude at best.
Yeah, like I'm going to the show in Toronto, and I was really hoping for a Best of All Worlds T-shirt. But if I'm going to get a T-shirt with Sammy's mug on it and it says "Thank you," that's going to be pretty lame.
Yeah, I don't think it's many steps removed from when you watch a person accepting a Grammy or an Emmy, and they go, "First of all, none of this would have happened without the blessings of God," and you go, "Okay, PR spin here, PR spin." It's like that.
But it's also the Grammys, and it's like, who the fuck cares? Like, does anyone really care about the Grammys anymore?
True. I just think that you do gratitude in real life. You just don't name tours after gratitude.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, let's keep going. Ow, ooh, according to the lyric sheet.
Ow!
Yeah,
Ow,
is what
ooh,
Dave
and
says.
aw,
Yeah.
And yeah.
I found a quote from Brad Tolinsky's book, Eruption, Conversations with Eddie Van Halen. Somebody gave me, Doctor, sounds like it's going to come off the rails at any minute. It slows down, it speeds up, it stops, it does all these different things, and it's really like a great blues jazz band or early rock band. I thought that summed it up pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, they that's not my I love that solo. I love everything that fucking Eddie and Mikey are doing. Holy shit. But that that moment right before it comes to its cadence there is just, what are y'all doing? What are we doing? It almost feels like the rest of the band knew when to transition into like slow tempo, and then Eddie just like, no, let's pick it back up. Oh, we're not gonna do that? Oh, okay, I got you, I got it. And they're like, just leave that in. We're not gonna correct it in the studio. Leave it in. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah. And one of the Dave recent podcasts where he was just talking about how important he was talking about how him and Eddie wrote everything in Van Halen, which we know is not true because I'll Wait was co-written by Michael McDonald, and the Hot for Teacher drum riff was clearly not written by Dave or Eddie, and the 1984 intro keyboard thing was related to the Michael Anthony bass solo from that era. And I hear a song like this and I go, there's intricate things happening in the bass part and then the arrangement. And some people say that arrangement is not songwriting, it's just arrangement, and you shouldn't get it credit for it. So that's up for debate. But clearly Ted Templeman was involved in the creation of this song.
Yeah. And one thing about those Templeman records, they're produced like perfectly. There's so much separation. You get bass, you get guitar, you get drums, like everything's just mixed so damn well. I'm going back to Tolinsky's book, and his quote was, these are cool, ripping artificial harmonics, and these volumes swell, but it's just such an exciting song. I could listen to that any day, anytime, not just the guitar part, but the whole damn thing. And I absolutely agree. Now, I'm getting called out in the chat that if you read the Van Halen News Desk article, that Sammy's just kind of offhandedly referring to it as the thank you tour. Maybe it's still going to be called the Best of All Worlds tour. But his quote was, I'm calling it the thank you tour. So I don't know if he's officially calling it the thank you tour, if that's just kind of like his meaning behind it. Because he talked about how this is for the fans.
Okay,
and all that kind of stuff.
That sounds like he's just like in his mind. Yeah. That's what he's calling it.
It may not be officially the thank you tour. So
yeah.
As Scott points out, my T-shirt might still be intact. So I sure hope so.
Mark, you said the magic words, in his mind.
In his mind, yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Look, to be honest, I'd rather be in his mind than David Lee Roth's at this moment for sure.
I'd rather be neither of their minds. I'd rather be.
Right.
I'd rather be in David Coverdale's mind. There's a lot more sanity in that guy's mind. That guy has a lot of gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
He survived the same kind of stuff that all these guys did. There's so many peers of the classic rock world that I hear their name and I don't go, oh, that guy's nuts. Like if we talk about Kevin Cronin from REO Speedwagon, I don't go, oh man, that guy's crazy. I'd go, oh, I like that guy. I don't know. I'm super clouded by these last few months.
No, that's fair. Those are fair assessments.
David Coverdale is a must follow on Twitter. Great guy.
Yeah.
Or X or whatever the
He's
fuck
like
it is.
Richard Marx. He's one of those hilarious musicians you don't realize is a hilarious musician.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, well, you had me there. All right, I'll do that.
Marxism. Richard Marxism, that is.
Yeah. It's like I'm a Marxist, a Richard Marxist. Like, absolutely.
Richard Marx, who just made news because he yelled at a woman for talking loudly at his concert. Like, good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn right. Shut up, Karen.
Exactly. All right. Somebody get me a doctor. Here we go. All right.
That.
Oh, boy.
Song about heroin. Awesome.
Well, I tell you, I found a quote from Eddie talking to Guitar World. He said, quote, "It's about being high and feeling good," which everyone, again, can relate to. It's a common theme in the lyrics of David Lee Roth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like I wrote this one after I was way too high, and I was like, no, seriously, y'all call me a doctor. My heart won't stop beating so fast. It's like, you're good, bro. It's just, you know, it's the coke. You'll pass out and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right. Somebody give me a doctor. Often requested, often manifested, and never come to fruition until tonight. And serendipitously, a Dave track for the Dave guy, and that completes our journey on Van Halen 2, which, you know, oh, that's sad, because I thought Van Halen 1 and 2 were going to be poetically and ironically the last bits of songs that we had left on the wheel, and we still got a few from Van Halen 1, but it's not just these two. I thought that would have been really, really nice, but here we are. We're finishing it up, wrapping it up. Darren, before Corey comes back and before we vote on it, what sort of parting words do you have for Somebody Get Me a Doctor?
It musically, I think, is a grand slam of a track. Lyrically, when you actually read along to it while it's playing, you go, oh boy. I think he had the title. I think he had that last joke at the end, like, somebody give me a shot. I think that's all he really had. And then he was working around and going, oh, okay, what rhymes with doctor? Okay, not a lot here. We got Proctor. Oh, I can't sing about proctors.
Wait a minute. Are you suggesting that Dave and all of his wondrous lyricism that apparently he has had, that our listeners won't quit telling me about, how he's the vastly superior lyricist to Sammy, you're telling me he's just kind of just winging it on this one?
I obviously we're thinking alike on that one. I think that Dave at his best and his most thoughtful, there's few people better, but there's a lot of garbage in the Dave lyrical department, just like Sammy. I think we can all agree that there's certain Van Halen songs that you hear and you go, this is clearly a guitar riff. Mm-hmm. And somebody has to sing something on top of it. And then there's other ones you go, oh, no, that's prophetic. He was singing about something. I still don't know what the song I'll Wait is about. I still don't fully understand it, but I think it means something.
I'm sure it does. But see, that points to what I have been trying to say this whole time. Every time I defend a Sammy track, because most of the time, and I have admitted, Sammy does not have great lyrics a lot of the time. Like, sometimes they're either too on the nose or they're just so out there that, like, Sammy, come back to earth real quick, dude. And it's like, what are you saying here? And then sometimes, I would say a lot of the times, I think he nails it. But our listeners and our audience are pretty determined that Sammy's lyrics are just always pretty awful. It doesn't take away from his vocal ability, but his lyrics are awful. Dave always wrote better lyrics, and like nobody ever talked shit about any of the lyrics Dave wrote. And I'm like, look, let's be fair here. Not every single bit of Dave's lyrics are gems. They're not all gold, okay? And I try my best to point them out when they happen. Like this one right here. This is a great song. Lyrically, as you and I have just discussed, lyrically, it's not a lot happening. It's like, okay, it's about being high and you need a doctor. It just feels like you didn't have a lot to go with here and you just made it some shit up.
Yeah. Kind of like tattoo.
Yeah, exactly. So all I'm saying, dear listeners, dear friends, my lovelies out there, let's call it fair when it's fair, okay? Let's admit when Dave is not writing good lyrics, let's admit they're not good. The song itself might be awesome, but let's just keep it fair. That's all I'm saying. And these last 14 songs we have left and in the live shows, let's just be fair about it, okay? If you're gonna analyze Sammy's lyrics as hard as we all do, then we should extend the same courtesy to Sammy and Gary's lyrics, you know. And I mean, and we do. Poor Gary. Apologies to Gary. We have slammed him so hard for his try on Van Halen 3, and we're not done yet. We still got one song there, but enough about that. You know what? I'm going to start with Corey. I'm going to start with you, man. I know how this is going to go, but I just want to hear your thoughts on it. So the longly awaited Somebody Get Me a Doctor for you. Is it what dreams are made of, or is the dream over?
You know, as we're getting close to the end of our journey here, Mark, I'm thinking we're going to have to do like a top 10, for like the very final episode before we branch into the solo stuff, because I think the plan is we're going to get into Dave solo, Sammy solo, Gary, all that kind of stuff. But before we get into that, I'm like, what are my top 10 Van Halen tracks? Somebody Get Me a Doctor very well may end up on those top 10 tracks. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. And you're talking about an album I absolutely love in Van Halen 2. Like Darren said, people aren't talking about it enough. It's my favorite Van Halen record. I think it's solid from top to bottom. And we were talking about Dance the Night Away and Out of Love Again and Light Up the Sky and DOA and Women in Love and Beautiful Girls. And this is maybe my favorite song on that record. Like it's as guaranteed That's What Dreams Are Made Of for me as I've had in a long time on this show, because I love this record. I love this song. It's just something about the riff, the way, how it's mixed, the way they're playing it, the harmonies, the lyrics. Sure. I don't listen to Van Halen so much for lyrics. I know I kind of break them down because that's kind of what our job is here, to talk a little bit about the lyrics. As long as it sounds cool, I'm kind of okay with it. When you're talking about cherries on bananas, it doesn't sound cool. You need a second helping. I don't give a fuck. It sounds like shit. This sounds cool, right? Dave makes this sound cool. So I know there's a lot of talk in the chat about the lyrics are. Somebody actually pointed out, Scott Everett said, lyrics-wise, Dave's floor is higher than Sammy's is. When they both put in the work, they both could be great, which is a great comment because they absolutely could. But I think there's more examples of Dave's being higher than Sammy's, unfortunately, when it comes to this band. And this is, lyrically not great, but come on, that chorus, somebody get, like, I can't sing, obviously. I'm not going to horrify you all with that, but it always brings a smile to my face. And I know the guys, I always bring in the lyrics and stuff on the call, but you guys can see me on the Zoom call and I'm banging my head and I'm singing along. Like, it makes me feel good. And that's what Van Halen always did for me. Is this is a band that always made me feel good, from pillar to post. And this is one of my all-time favorite tracks. Will it make my top 10? Very possible. But for tonight, it's absolutely What Dreams Are Made Of. But now we're going to go to the David Lee Roth expert. He literally wrote the book on David Lee Roth, even though he hates him so much. He's a big Gary guy, from what I hear. Loves Josephina.
I started this book as the biggest Dave fan imaginable, and I ended the book a huge, huge fan. And then once I finished the book, all these people started coming out of the woodwork to tell me all of their Dave horror stories.
Oh,
it's like, I'm waiting for positive stories. I'm waiting for he pulled kittens out of a burning building, or he gave bonuses in a good way, or I'm just waiting for something. So I wouldn't say it's hatred. It's more like
indifference.
Yeah, it's more, why can't you be more like David Coverdale at this point?
Hey, David Lee Roth,
be like the other Dave who employed Steve Vai.
DLR, make sure the checks are there at the gig in paper form by a hot female accountant. All 83 checks are right there to be handed out at the end of the show.
And another reason that story does not make full sense is he's saying what bag the person he was saying, and this is not a Motley Crue groupie. This is a high end one, and she has a Gucci bag. So her Gucci bag had 80 plus paper checks in it. What? Well, who are these accountants that just go to random gigs and go, "Here's everyone's checks. I know you got paid direct deposit on all the other gigs, but here's your check."
Yeah, we're not going to mail them to you. And this was like we're going to, instead of mailing him to you or direct deposit, I'm bringing him to the gig. I'm going to sit in the pit with other fans in my Gucci bag and have everybody, that one, there were side stage, I think, but I thought one, they were in the crowd where Wolfie's like,
that poor woman was paid to be there to pretend to give out checks.
It's just like, how stupid.
What are you doing? Yeah, what are you doing, dude? But anyway, Corey.
There's so many things that just don't add up. But going back, I think that this is a spectacular Van Halen song. It has the attitude, it has the riff, it has the energy, it has all the stuff that you would want from 1970s Van Halen. I'm not going to say it sounds timeless, but it practically does sound timeless. You wouldn't hear it and go, "Oh, that's so 70s." It's not like it's Foghat or something like that. It just sounds timeless. So absolutely what dreams are made of.
It's not Savoy Brown. It's not buried in the 70s. I'm shocked.
I did recently interview Roger Earl and Scott Holt from Foghat, and they're wonderful, delightful people. But when I think of Foghat, I do think of them as a 70s band. And I don't think of Van Halen's first two albums as 1970s. It just sounds kind of timeless to me.
It sounds like Van Halen, but I was just I just did a show on, you want to talk about band drama? How about everybody in the band but one guy leaving Savoy Brown to go form Foghat, and leaving one guy in Savoy Brown? I'm like, well, that's band drama, all right.
Yeah, and that's a huge band that nobody talks about as being a huge band because of poor legacy management, like Van Halen or Grand Funk or Creedence. It's just this list of bands that are much bigger or were much bigger than we remember because of all that.
There you go. We're going to have to do a Savoy Brown podcast now. But before we do that, we got to get Mark Kameyer's vote. Mark noted Dave hater of all things, really, Mark Kameyer. Unless it's like DC Comics, I love fucking DC. What do you think about Somebody Get Me a Doctor? Is this what dreams are made of, or is the dream over?
Well, I don't hate Foghat. And I love all comics, motherfucker, by the way. Let's keep it real.
Kiss Comics?
Well, I've never read those.
Well, that was a Marvel comic, right? Back in the day, where they donated their blood for the ink. Yeah, that was a Marvel.
Yeah, I think they were under the Marvel brand. So but not all Marvels are winners. Not all DCs are winners. You know what is a winner? Somebody Give Me a Doctor.
Yeah,
this is a great track, man. I mean, you tell me, Corey, that this one might make your top 10 of Van Halen songs. I'm not gonna fight you again. I'm not gonna argue against that because, of course, it comes from an album that you and I both absolutely love. This track is one of the if you had to give solid examples of why this song is held so highly, I think why this album is held so highly, I think Somebody Give Me a Doctor is a perfect example. It's like, just listen to that. That's why. And if that doesn't work for you, then you throw in another song and it just evens it out. But there's not a bad song on Van Halen 2, but Somebody Give Me a Doctor is definitely one of the songs that adds to the awesome flavor that is Van Halen 2. I've said it before. I said it earlier on the show. I like to think of Van Halen 1 and 2 as basically one big long album. And Somebody Give Me a Doctor, to me, really feels like it belongs in the in the repertoire of that giant cycle. If you put Van Halen 1 and 2 together, it doesn't miss a step whatsoever. It feels like the same Van Halen. It is the same Van Halen, but I mean, it actually feels like it. And this is that party, have fun Van Halen that so many people love. I think that's honestly why there are so many Roth loyalists out there, is because they are clinging to how they felt in this particular era of Van Halen, this and Van Halen 1 especially, just because these two albums were bangers. They're still bangers to this day. We're still talking about it. This podcast doesn't happen if those albums aren't as successful as they are, I don't think, because we just be like, yeah, Van Halen, they were good. They got good later, but that early work, that's going to be rough. Like, no, the early work is the, like, almost the gold standard, and I know I'm saying that as a more of a Sammy guy, but it's just the truth. And I'm not saying that just because I think specifically Dave is superior. No, I'm just saying everyone in the band were firing on all cylinders in this particular era, and to me, they couldn't miss a step. This was the point in time where they couldn't miss a step at, back-to-back albums. So Somebody Give Me a Doctor is a shining example of that. That solo is killer. I love what Michael Anthony's doing, both his background vocals, but also on the bass. Alex Van Halen is just, he's making sure that he's there, and he's not going to let you forget that he's there. And then Dave, honestly, vocally, lyrically aside, because I think the lyrics are just kind of whatever, but they do fit. Like Corey said, are they stupid? Yeah, but do they fit the song? Yes, they do. So can't complain too much. But honestly, vocally, Dave's doing some really, really good stuff there. Like I said, his little intro howl is probably my favorite of his little intros. He didn't do a lot of vocal intros, but the ones he does, this one stands out.
You mean awe? Because in the lyric sheet it said,
yes,
awe.
his awe, his awe,
Yeah.
his awe. Just it awes me, is what it does. And so for all those reasons, Somebody Get Me a Doctor is absolutely what dreams are made of. And you know what? Van Halen 2 is what dreams are made of. Yeah. And be on the lookout, you guys, because sometime soon, maybe not immediate, but sometime soon, we're gonna do another live show, and we're gonna discuss the ever popular Van Halen 2. So
I can't wait. Now, we do have a conversation in the chat. Scott Monroe asks, could this be the one to dethrone little guitars? So right now, if you look at every week, we put up a poll and everybody can vote on their, if it's What Dreams Are Made Of or Is the Dream Over. Right now, little guitars still leading the way. Episode 65, the number one song in our poll. 98.6% What Dreams Are Made Of.
Me too.
Like, that is crazy for little guitars, isn't it?
Yeah. I really like little guitars and all that, but it starts off strong. Don't love the chorus. Don't love the breakdown as much. That's not one of my 20 favorite Van Halen songs. I'm shocked that's your number one.
Number one. Number two is Take Your Whiskey Home. Number 3, Mean Street, which I know Jeff Brewer's going to agree with. Number 4, Hot for Teacher. And number 5 comes from this record, DOA, which is currently 96.2%. So it's going to be interesting to see where Somebody Get Me a Doctor lands on that one.
What's more surprising is not only is Little Guitar still in the massive lead there with 98%, but this is a song that isn't one of their more popular songs in terms of mainstream success. I think if you ask a Joe Schmoes, you like Van Halen? Yes, for sure. You like Little Guitars? Which one is that?
Yeah.
Guarantee you that's what they say. Not only that, this song, Little Guitars, comes from Diver Down, which we have been told repeatedly by our audience is not their favorite album at all. In fact, so many of our listeners have gone out of their way to tell us how much they're just not into it because it is a quote unquote covers album. I don't agree with that. But it's there's a lot of covers, but I don't call it their covers album. I call it an album they did with some covers. And then they got some, the originals like Little Guitars, but it baffles me that everyone kind of is very down on Diver Down, but yet Little Guitars is the standout, so much so that it's our highest rated song that we've done. You guys make it make sense, because I can't.
Well, and Jeff points out in the chat, Dance the Night Away should have beat it. I like Dance the Night Away better than Little Guitars do. Dance the Night Away currently
I do too.
Is 15th.
I do
or
too.
sorry, 19th. When you look at our rankings, Dance the Night Away is number 19. 91.6% What Dreams Are Made of, 8.4% The Dream Is Over. My favorite.
I like Dance the Night Away better than I think I like Dance the Night Away better than our top 5 right now.
Well,
yeah, I'm with you, and I'm wondering if this is one of those things where you're not allowed to just get a cheeseburger at a restaurant anymore. They have to add extra toppings to that cheeseburger to make it look like it's special, because you're not allowed to tell anyone that you love the cheeseburger. They'll be like, well, it has pickled croutons and it's turkey bacon, and then we put a remoulade on it. You go, I just want a cheeseburger. I think your listeners are afraid to admit that they want the cheeseburger. And Little Guitars is the remoulade and the turkey bacon, all that, because they don't want to seem like they're simple people.
Who the hell put croutons on my burger? What the shit is this?
Oh, you have to understand, it's a Swedish delicacy, and you can't just like a cheeseburger anymore. So little croutons is little
croutons.
I didn't even say that, but little croutons.
Yeah, I mean, there it is. And don't get me wrong, we upvoted Little Guitars. We thought it was it's a great track, but
it's not
I just
number
don't
one.
Understand how. Yeah, I don't understand how that is the number one. But
I think
it is what it is.
Maybe
I guess
the people like when Eddie plays the ugly little guitar.
Maybe, yeah,
maybe.
My favorite Van Halen track of all time currently is still Panama, which is number 23. In the rankings right now. Panama got 90.7%. What Dreams Are Made of, 9.3%. The Dream Is Over, which seems low. Even when you're looking at Diver Down songs, Where Have All the Good Times Gone is number 21.
Really rude and interrupt and say, who are these people that say Where Have All the Good Times Gone is a top 30 Van Halen song?
Right?
Who are these people listening to your show? Are they trolling you and you just don't realize you have a certain trolling audience?
The Full Bug is number 35 out of 109 songs. The Full Bug.
Yeah, the Full Bug. Like I mean, to answer your question, Darren, we do have quite a bit of trolls out there for sure. These are the same trolls that will absolutely downvote the moment they see a Sammy song, despite not listening to it probably, or just not knowing what it is, but they know that it's not a Dave tune. So downvote. Yep. And that is why Sammy has yet to break a 90%.
He does, yeah. Our highest ranked Sammy song is Pound Cake. Ranks number 27 on the rankings, 89.1% What Dreams Are Made of, 10.9% The Dream Is Over. Just below Center Swing and just above As Is from A Different Kind of Truth.
Unreal. I stopped trying to make sense of it a long time ago just because I couldn't, and it was starting to get to me, and it's all on those shows when I discuss it, because you all our dear listeners, the ones that are actually listening, I adore all of you. I don't understand your voting sometimes, but it is what it is. I know it's not all of you, especially our patrons. Like they're very vocal, and we've given them that voice, so they let us know. But most of the time, it's just the randos. But hey, randos, I'm talking to you. Yeah. Why are you voting the way you are voting?
Little croutons.
Little croutons. Make it make sense. So.
Play it live. People love Where Have All the Good Times Gone. Massive sing along. There you go. I didn't think it was that big, but Chaz thinks it was.
I mean. Okay, well then, cool. Yeah, but still,
it's a good tune.
We
seems
said
high.
What we said. Yeah, it still seems high. Yeah,
Running with the Devil is number 20.
That doesn't make any sense. So,
and the Cradle Will Rock is 12th.
Actually, you know what they're gonna say? They're gonna say, "Yeah, but all of those songs are overplayed all the time." So
somebody pointed that out. Maybe it's why. Yeah, it stays away from that dumb argument of I've heard it too often. Scott Everett pointed out, you never hear it on the radio, and it's a great song. Maybe that's why it got more upvotes, because it's they always play Unchained. I'm not voting for that.
Yeah, pizza. I've had it too many times.
Yeah,
I'm so sick of pizza. I can't eat pizza ever again. And ice cream, I'm so tired of it. It's so bad. What?
It's like, this cheeseburger's got croutons in it. Fuck it. Anyway. But there it is. So yeah, one day, and maybe soon, maybe one day soon, we'll come up with an explanation as to the why. But I doubt it. And I'm just gonna continue to make peace with the fact that I don't understand how the voting goes. So,
Bullethead becomes number one. You're welcome.
There you go.
Hey, look,
it's got a shot.
It might look. Little Guitars is number one by like a huge margin, so anything's fucking possible. And we know that Bullethead has been manifested quite a lot by a lot of people. So if it happens, be ready for an email coming your way. Be like, look what you did.
Just so you know, our highest rated A Different Kind of True song right now is number 28, As Is.
It's good, but
it's not that good. It's not that good.
No.
It's currently beating out Hear About It Later, Top of the World, Why Can't This Be Love, Push Comes to Shove, Girl Gone Bad, 5150, and the legendary Full Bug.
See, there you go.
Where was Jump?
The case in point.
It does beat Jump. Jump is currently number 38.
Yeah, but like case in point, right there, all those Sammy tracks that are just falling like behind is just like, but then As Is in the top 30. Like,
beats 5150. That's because 5150 is one of Sammy's best tunes. Best of Both Worlds.
Yeah,
is one of my favorite Van Halen tunes of all time. It's currently sitting way down at, where the hell did it go? Best of Both Worlds. It's way below. It's number 36 right now, between the Full Bug and Ice Cream Man.
Is there a Reddit group that exists to fix the votes?
Maybe. I don't know. I've never looked at that. Yeah, that's.
I haven't either. I can honestly say, out of the entire time, 3 years now, Corey?
Yeah.
That we've been doing the show, not once have I ever looked at a Reddit thread. So I might have to now just to see. Just to take a peek, to be like, let's see if we're getting talked about in that capacity. But that's just my ego talking. But at the same time, like, I kind of want to figure it out.
Exactly right.
Maybe there is something happening there. But Chaz
wants to know in the chat, the first Sammy song in the overalls, currently Top of the World, is number 30, 88%. What Dreams Are Made Of. Technically, Pound Cake from Live Right Here, Right Now was higher, but the album track for Pound Cake was lower. So when you're talking about album tracks right now, the current leader for Sammy is Top of the World at number 30. Currently losing to Hear About It Later, As Is, Sinner Swing, Everybody Wants Some.
Just take this empty bottle and beat me over the head with it, please. God. Insane. But hey, it is what it is. It's fine. And at this point, like I said, there's 14 more tracks left to go. So there's no chance we're going to sway any opinions, but I just want to understand. So I'm going to be on the lookout for Reddit on that one. Oh, but we're not, you know what that music means. Yeah, we're going to play the game again.
It's my favorite part of the show. We're doing it twice this week. We're going to play How Many Times Have Van Halen Performed Somebody Get Me a Doctor. Mark Meyer, let's start with you. Since you won the last round, how many times do you think Van Halen performed Somebody Get Me a Doctor?
I got to imagine they probably played this thing a lot.
Yeah, probably.
So, or at least a good fair amount, but maybe not so much. All right, I'm going to say a healthy 180 times.
180. All right, Darren Paltrowitz, we come to you now. Remember, Price is Right rules. How many times do you think Van Halen performed Somebody Get Me a Doctor?
As much as I just want to lean into my microphone and go $1, I'm going to go, it's got to be over 180. So if I just say 181, that takes the cake.
You know what? Darren Paltrowitz is this week's winner, ladies and gentlemen. No one is even remotely fucking close, though. Somebody Get Me a Doctor performed by Van Halen 550 times.
Damn.
Remember, they did this. They did this on the Van Halen 3 tour. They did it on the 2012 tour. They did it on the 2015 tour. They actually performed it on their last show at the Hollywood Bowl, October 4th, 2015. So they played the fuck out of Somebody Get Me a Doctor.
Well, as well they should, because it's a really good track. So, you know, despite who's singing it and despite lyrical content, it's good. It's a good song.
Was it the only song to have been performed in the Sharon, Roth, and Hagar eras live?
Ain't Talking About Love maybe hit all three. Did Gary ever do that one? I know Sammy
Gary did Unchained, I know.
Yeah.
But I don't know if... Did Sammy do Unchained?
I don't know if Sammy ever did Unchained. No.
I don't know if he did Unchained, but he definitely did Ain't Talking About Love because it's awesome.
It's true.
I feel like Gary probably did Ain't Talking About Love just because that's one of the staples of the Van Halen catalog. But I could be wrong. This is the downside of never seeing Van Halen live. So I just don't know.
Gary did do Unchained. Gary did
was
Unchained.
done by all three.
Yeah. Just looking at a sample, Gary set list, he did Unchained. He did Mean Street, did When It's Love, Why Can't This Be Love, did I'm the One. Jamie's Crying, Somebody Get Me a Doctor, Ain't Talking About Love right now. So yeah, he did a ton of. Really live. You're getting really the best of all worlds if you went to a Gary show because they did, unfortunately, a few Van Halen 3 tracks, but a really good mixture of the Dave and Sammy eras.
That's what it sounds like. So, and maybe Gary sounded better doing those than the Van Halen 3 songs, unfortunately. But I don't know. Somebody who went to that Van Halen 3 tour, let me know. Let us know.
There's a great official bootleg Van Halen never put out, Live Australia, I think 98, that you can easily find on YouTube. A full Gary show that was produced. You just have a lot of cringe Gary stage moves. I don't want to say what they are. I want you to report back after you watch this.
Are they more cringe than Dave moves?
Yes.
Dave
there's
had the high kick
that I had to show my wife and go, look at this, look at this, look at this. And she
that sounds like a fun activity. I'm gonna do that when my fiance gets home. Be like, hey,
look at this,
what we're doing tonight. I gotta find this Australian bootleg.
Yeah, it was. I don't know why it never came out, but it's a properly produced with helicopter shots and all that live.
Maybe it was the stage work, and they were like, we can't show this to people.
Well, Scott Monroe in the chat says the Fire in the Hole move is interesting. Now I don't recall the Fire in the Hole move. I got to look that up now. Holy cow!
Yeah,
there's some between the legs moves of Sharon and the bell bottoms and
yeah.
Oh, Jesus
enjoy.
Christ. Well, now I have. I'm both intrigued and horrified, and I'm gonna be like entertained and yet angry, and I'm gonna come back at you with another email and be like, you know what you did.
Okay, apologies to Gary. He's never had the best stage moves. Watch the Freddie Mercury tribute concert when they're doing the Queen medley, and for some reason he starts spinning for like 2 minutes. He's just spinning in a circle, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing, buddy? Fortunately, he
look. Not all the greats have great stage moves. That's for sure. Like
they can't all be Robert Plant.
It can't all be Robert Plant, and even some of his moves are questionable, but we can't all be Robert Plant. We can't all be I don't know, just
Freddie Mercury.
Name a lanky artist.
We can't all be David Coverdale.
We can't all be David Coverdale. Absolutely.
It all comes full circle. So
that's right.
That's amazing. And speaking of full circle, you know what, Darren, man, it's been a pleasure having you here once again. It's been a while, and we're happy you came back, and we're happy to talk some David Lee Roth stuff with you. Even if it wasn't in the most pleasant of light, it's still something to talk about. So please, once again, tell the people what you got going on with the book, where they can find you, where they can find it, what else happening. The floor is yours.
Thank you. DLR Book, How David Lee Roth Changed the World, is out now through Backbeat and Roman and Littlefield. You can get it at Van Halen store, Amazon, Target, Walmart, wherever you buy your books, you can get it online, should be available. The Kindle, I think there was a mishap and it's finally out in 2 weeks, something like that. Then I tape interviews 5-6 days a week, Paltrowcast with Darren Paltrowitz on 150 plus stations and OTT carriers, including Byron Allen's Local Now. Byron Allen owns the world. You just have to realize that because he submitted that $40 billion bid to buy Paramount this week.
Oh, so did he?
On Team Byron Allen.
Oh, my God.
Yes. Byron Allen is the king. You should build your shrine now while you still can. And specific to the people who listen to this show, I started making these supercuts of Dave and putting them on my YouTube channel of him just yelling and flipping out. And I think I have 4 of them up on my YouTube channel. If you look, 2 of them are from that Finland 99 show that I'm obsessed with. And it's just, wow, like just 1 second of yelling. So if you want to see that, follow me on YouTube, and I do plan on posting another one within the next few days of Dave yelling. Then I think we're going to eventually move to Karate Kick compilations. None of it is for Little Croutons, though. Actually, no, there's a little thing for Little Croutons in there.
They're loving Little Croutons in
Hell
the chat
yeah.
right now, I got to tell you.
Loud, baby.
There you go.
Yeah, it's not far off. I think you guys are going to like him just yelling in Finland. There's so many yelps and yows and all that. And all that started because my wife, just to wake me up, will just like let out a David Lee Roth yow out of nowhere in the middle of the workday. And I realized, okay, I'm going to spend a couple of my hours of my life rewatching this and time stamping every yow from particular shows.
You're doing the Lord's work, my friend. Oh my goodness. That must have taken
I'm trying. Somebody's got to remember Dave for the positive things in his life.
There you
and
go.
The yows,
Somebody's got to.
He's not doing himself
that's
any
me,
favors right now, that's for sure.
But hey, credit goes to you two. Thank you again for having me on. Love what you're doing. You're keeping the Van Halen legacy alive better than Van Halen is. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
We're certainly
our pleasure.
trying.
Thank you so much for
They
that.
used to say I was hyperactive. Now they say I'm self-motivated. So
There you go.
Oh,
Ugh, yeah, for better or for worse. Oh man, so thank you so much, Darren, for being on here, man. It's always a pleasure. So hey, you guys, we've talked a lot about the Discord and Patreon, and we talk about that every week on the show because we want you to join it, because that's where all the fun is happening. You get your tweets, your mini manifestos read live on the show. You got to join the Discord, or I'm sorry, you got to join the Patreon. Then you get to be part of the Discord and get involved in the discussion. We talk about everything, not just Van Halen, but all kinds of stuff, and gives us a nice little insight into what maybe you can expect from Corey and myself in the future, because as I've mentioned, we only have 14 more tracks on the wheel left to go, and those are going to come by real quick, but not so quick because we'll have live shows to go. Go on over to www.podcastwillrock.com, find all the backlog episodes, find all the socials we're connected to, and our merch store. Get you an Apologies to Gary t-shirt and let the army grow. You've been showing me through social media, all of you purchasing a shirt, and that's made me so happy. I have laughed really hard. Shout out to Josh, who was at NAMM representing the Apologies to Gary shirt, getting a lot of people getting their heads turning, getting people laughing, and that just makes my heart so happy, so full. Eventually Gary will catch on, and hey, maybe he'll even send us an inquiry. I'll be like, what the hell's happening here? What are you guys doing?
That's the hope.
Hey, glad you asked.
Yeah,
that's the hope. He's like, glad you asked, Gary. Come on the show. Let's have a discussion. That's all I want. That's all I want. So do that. And we also have plenty of other really cool designs for the shirts on our merch store by our good friend Kevin Brown. So make sure you get that. And then you can find me at Mark the Bat on Twitter and Instagram. I'm kind of on Twitter, but barely. So just find me on Instagram, and of course, and the podcast will rock on Twitter and Facebook. I run it the best I can, but I know I'm not the greatest, but it's fine because you guys, you don't go to our socials for the interaction there. You want the interaction here and everything like that. So if you want to get in on the good dirt and the good conversations, you got to join the Patreon. We'll find a tier that's right for you. I guarantee it. Corey, always a pleasure, my man. Where can people find some like-minded podcasts if they like the stuff that we do?
I'll tell you, Mark, last week I did the pod roll, and I played a little Beautiful Girls by Extreme, and you yelled at me a lot.
I did.
For an entire week. You screamed obscenities at my wife, my children. It was really, really uncalled for.
I don't remember that.
Which song?
I'll accept it.
Beautiful Girls.
Okay, so that was written by a guy that I grew up with. I just learned that the other day.
Really?
Beautiful Girls by Extreme was written by a guy from Long Island and Carl Restivo, and then extremed it up.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, Jordan Plosky from my local punk rock scene wrote this song.
So Jordan Plosky is responsible for this. See,
I swear to you, Jordan Plosky, you'll see his name on it.
Gary Sharon, answer.
I believe it, but now I have so many other questions to Jordan, and one of them being why. but
it's not a favorite of the podcast for Rock Universe.
Oh no,
It
yeah.
is not.
Why did they write a ska song? I know Jordan from the ska scene on Long Island. I kid not. I used to go see his ska punk band called Sprout play, and then he landed the Ryan Cabrera gig, and then that led to I think Big Time Rush and other bands where he was kind of a drumming sideman for. And his best friend and roommate was Carl Restivo, who plays bass in Extreme, and that song was just sitting there. And I think that is the only song that Jordan ever wrote. I kid not.
Wait, who did you say plays bass in Extremes? Isn't that Pat Badgers?
Ooh.
Well, Jordan never played in that, but he played in that Satellite Party with Perry Farrell and Nuno.
Okay.
And some other stuff. So it was just the song sitting there. And my friend told me that is the only song Jordan ever wrote. It's that.
Look at the exclusive we're getting here tonight. We got Darren's unfiltered thoughts on David Lee Roth. And now we have this exclusive on Extreme's Beautiful Girls, which is becoming kind of a classic on our show. But because Mark yelled at me so much, I thought I got to find a better song to read the podcast roll to. So hopefully this one will meet your fancy. How about Podema? We're going to go with this. We're going to call it Podema because we're going to talk about some different podcasts you folks can check out. Like-minded podcast if you enjoy Deep Dive podcast, including myself and Kevin Brown doing the ultimate catalog clash. We're pitting different albums from different artists together in an ultimate catalog clash to find out who's the best. This season 2, we're doing 90s era Metallica. So that's Black Album, Load, and Reload. We're about halfway through Load right now. So check out that show. We're going to see which one of those albums comes out on top. I'm sure you could probably guess. I also have a couple of podcasts that are currently archived. Backtracks, Aerosmith Revisited. We went through a lot of the Aerosmith catalog and compiled an Aerosmith mixtape. I also have Backtracks theme music where we talked about music and movies. Kevin Brown also does a show on Tom Petty called The Tom Petty Project. He also does a podcast with his buddy Randy Woods about Queen called Seaside Pod Review. And then you can check out Scott Haskin, the sexiest man in podcasting, at Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast, Nate and John at the Deep Purple Podcast, The Simple Man at Skinnerd Reconsidered, Terry T-Bone Mathley at T-Bone's Prime Cuts, Rye at Sabbath Bloody Podcast, Paul Joan David at In the Lap of the Pods, another Queen podcast, Andy and Matt at Hawk Binge, talking about Hawkwind, Eric and Jonathan at Maiden A to Z, Daniel and Josh at Diary of the Madmen, the Ultimate Aussie Podcast, Ben and Sam at Universally Speaking, the Red Hot Chili Peppers Podcast, George and Hattie at the Judas Priest Cast, Clay and Rye at North by South Podcast, that's Canadian music versus American music. That one's a lot of fun. Check that one out. Greg and Jonathan at So Far, So Pod, So What, talking all things Megadeth. Then we have Quinn at In Volume for All, Savnik, Steve and Mark at the Rock Roulette Podcast, Chaz and Greg at Regarding Lulu, Chaz and Schatz at Rush Rash, Chaz and Wolfie at Regarding Roger, that's Roger Waters, and coming soon, Chaz and Scott talking about Van Halen 3, regarding Van Halen 3, that'll be coming out very, very soon. And then we have our good friends at the Sean Geek and Fast Fret Podcast, of course, the DLRcast and the Paltrowcast. Fantastic work you're doing over there, my friend Darren. Absolutely killer stuff. The Bogus Otis Show, Booked on Rock with the legendary Eric Stenich. I got my hand between my legs talking about You're All Doomed, a Friday the 13th podcast. Dissect that film. Three's Company 2, a rewatch podcast. And, of course, Pod of Thunder, the recognized symbol of excellence in rock and roll podcasting.
Yeah. Thank you, my friend. Awesome stuff. So, yeah, surely if maybe you want to take a break from the Van Halen-ness of it all, surely the Deep Dive Podcasting Network has something to meet your rock podcasting needs. After that list, I mean, I don't see how it couldn't. So
they cover pretty much everything.
Check that out.
I tell you what, there's a George Michael podcast just popped up. They're actually chatting on our live show. I remember he reached out quite a while ago and said, can I take your wheel concept and use it for George Michael? I said, absolutely.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that
it wasn't our it wasn't our wheel concept either.
No.
So
well, the wheel, we stole the format from Pot of Thunder. We added a wheel, and now everybody's doing a wheel, right? The Spinning the Wheel podcast on George Michael. Kevin Brown just rips off all my good ideas for his shows.
Yeah.
He's doing a wheel on the Queen show. We're getting wheels all over the damn place. So I guess
so. We are the wheel podcast.
That's right. We're the originators of the wheel, motherfucker.
Yeah. We're the
but
OG.
Sammy Hagar's the one who
healers.
does this a lot, so that's kind of a wheel.
Okay. Yeah, we maybe stole that from Sammy.
well.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, we suck. Thanks.
Yeah,
David.
you're right. Well, at least we're covering, part of Sammy's career with the show. So it's fine. It's an homage, I think. There we go. Big shout out to all of those podcasts, and definitely check those out. On behalf of Corey and Darren, myself, thank you for joining us once again. And the podcast will rock, and we will rock you later.